Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is Twist Gaming, where you get to play board games with us. Coming to you live here from Gen Con 2018, bringing you board game coverage all week long. But first up, who are we? I'm Matt, and I am joined here with Roberto and Jim from Aries Games. How you doing today,
Hi.
gentlemen?
Hello.
Excellent.
So I know it's early in the week. The massive crowds haven't started to arrive yet, but we're almost there. You guys excited?
Yeah, we're preparing to get ready for the assault.
Getting ready for the onslaught, yeah.
Yeah.
So you brought your own tablecloth. I like it already. What are we showing off today?
We're showing Battlestar Galactica Starship battles.
So I got to zoom out a little bit. You taking over my whole table here. So Battlestar Galactica game. What kind of game are we talking about here? Because I see some minis and they look really good.
Yeah, thank you. And we are talking essentially of a spaceship battles game. So we wanted to have a game which scales up from a little combat between one or two Vipers against a couple of Raiders, up until to a massive battle with tens or maybe hundreds of ships on a table, and including the big capital ships. That's our vision of the game. We think we can handle that with the kind of game system that we've got, and which we'll explain you a little bit about in a few minutes. We will have a pre-painted, pre-assembled model.
That's good for people like me. I have zero painting skills whatsoever, so I'm excited to hear that.
Yes, I must say that I'm really happy of the kind of quality that our factory where we are producing has managed to achieve, because we are talking really about a level of details where you need a magnifying glass to see everything that's on these ships. As you can see, we have been very careful on getting the right markings, everything, so that you can get a really feel that you're driving one of those little beauties. And the company Aris Games, of course, has a previous track record with this kind of pre-painted, pre-assembled games, and in fact, here we have asked for the assistance in terms of design of the same designers that were involved with our previous Sales of Glory game. One of them also involved in the Wings of Glory game. So the format that we are following here is somehow similar to those other games. Pre-painted miniatures, easy to play rules, but at the same time a lot of what we call hidden complexity. So what the realistic part of the system is not doesn't require a lot of rules to be played with, but is hidden inside mechanics such as the maneuver deck, such as the control panel. So in the end, it's really easy to play, but you get all the key elements that make you feel you are playing a spaceship battle.
So easy to pick up, difficult to master somewhere in that aspect.
Definitely, and also very realistic to play. What we wanted to recreate, of course, is not realistic space combat in the proper sense of the term, but definitely Battlestar Galactica has a much more realistic approach to space battles than other popular sci-fi shows. So you can see, for example, the maneuver where a Viper is moving in one direction and shooting in the other direction, because essentially is moving by inertia in a direction. That's possible with our game.
Spin on the base?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
really cool. I got to show that off a little bit more. So the base, it actually spins on the base, so you can point the direct. So it's shooting in one direction and it's facing in another. That's a really neat thing.
Exactly. Yes, and when you are doing these, for example, we use a little device which we call the drift ruler, which, depending on the kinetic energy of your ship, gives you a certain level of movement in one direction or in the.
Oh, so you're saying that you could have like a momentum to your
Yes,
ship
you have a
then?
momentum for your ship, which essentially carries the ship in one direction while you are shooting in the opposite direction. So normally you are not doing this all the time. So your typical situation is where you are moving using maneuver cards, and as you see, we've got different kind of maneuver decks for different kind of ships. So here we've got the two that we have, one for the Silent Rider and and one for the Viper. And if you flip the cards,
Yeah, so this
you
is
can
the
see,
one for
okay,
the.
this is just a blank card. Of course, there is a little homage to the, to the playing cards that the characters use in
Right.
the series. But say most cards are not like that. They are like this. They use maneuver arrows
Hmm.
on top of that, and each maneuver arrow features a lot of information about how the ship will behave. And the maneuver deck in its entirety tells you how fast is the ship, how maneuverable is the ship, which kind of actions, which kind of maneuvers are difficult for that ship and which are not. So that's a lot. All these it doesn't require rules. It's just hidden in the way the maneuver deck is created, which kind of arrows you have at your
So
disposal.
your actions are going to be dependent on what you're getting from the maneuver deck.
Exactly, exactly. And the maneuver deck for a Viper will be distinct from the maneuver deck for a Raptor, for the maneuver deck for a Raider, and so on. So each ship will have a unique maneuver deck.
So how many different ships are we talking about here?
This is one very often asked for question because people have the impression that there aren't a lot of ships in Battlestar Galactica.
Hmm.
Jim here can tell we can tell us something about that. In fact, there are many more ships than people think there are, especially if we take into account all the expanded universe stuff. If you look at what is maybe just a few seconds on the screen in the show, but it's still one element of the show. So initially we are talking about the starter set, which includes 4 ships, 2 are Vipers and 2 are Raiders.
Hmm.
We will soon after follow with the Raptor. Raptor will have 2 different versions, one which is fully armored, one which is more like a transport, lightly armored version
Hmm.
of the Raptor. So essentially it's like 2 different ships. We will have a Cylon Heavy Raider. After this first wave of ships, we will have some of the classical series ships. So we will have a classical Viper and a classical Raider, but they will be playable with the reimagined series setting. So
Gotcha. So
while
it's like backwards compatible with each
yes,
other.
yes, they will be fully compatible, so you can play original series battles just using the original series ship, but you can mix and match them with the reimagined series ship. Then we will continue with the Viper Mark 7. We have the Stealth Star in the works, so we have a lot of fighters, and fortunately there are also additional models which have been developed for the various Battlestar Galactica video games especially, and we are going
Oh,
to
you're going to
reuse.
incorporate those also.
Yes, we're
Oh,
going to
nice.
incorporate some of those. We are having a nice partnership with Slytherin, which is the company doing the Battlestar Galactica Deadlock game that they are sharing with us some of the assets they developed for the video game. So
Very
we
cool.
plan to bring them, and of course we want to have the big ships.
Oh yeah.
We will definitely want to have the larger ship. We want to have a Cylon-based star. We want to have the Galactica as ships on the gaming table. It will not be possible to make them to scale with the because otherwise they would not fit
Take up
this
the
room.
entire table. Yeah.
Yeah, but they will still be very sizable and beautiful pieces that you can put on your gaming table and play with.
Very cool. So I see the tablecloth that you have here for this. Is this essentially your game board for this, or
Oh,
is it expandable beyond that as well?
yeah. Actually, you don't require any kind of game board. This is just for visuals. We plan to have game mats, just like we do with our Wings of Glory and Sails of Glory game, because they are. It's beautiful to have a specific playing surface to play with, but it's not necessary. You can play on any open table. And one of the strengths of this game is that thanks to the simultaneous movement system, everybody plans their actions for their ships at the same time.
Hmm.
So this means that the game can scale up really well with a lot of players. So
Okay.
with our other games, Wings of Glory, Sails of Glory, we've been making massive games with up to 100 players playing over like 50 meters long gaming tables. So
So with this game here, if you had something to that scale, would you be playing basically one team versus the other team, or is it more of like a free for all style that you have going, or?
We've done both. So it just depends on the venue and the space that we have. So sometimes it is literally a classical, it's going to be a dogfight where you've seen it in the TV shows where 100 Raiders on one side and 100 Vipers on the other, and they meet in the middle, and then it becomes a big fur ball. We've also done combats with some of our other games where you can't trust the guy to your left and right. That might be someone that you have to keep an eye out for, and it's literally every man for themselves. One of the things, particularly at a show like Gen Con, where you're having people come together that may not play together regularly, often they're looking for a very unique experience. So a game like this can provide them with something that they remember long after the show's over. Hopefully they like the game enough to pick it up. But even if they don't, they're going to get to do something a little bit different. And it might be, hey, I got ambushed by my partners to the left and right, and how did I get out of it? And what kind of happened? What tactical situation did I overcome? So the game really allows that to happen. And given the nature of the duplicitous nature of Cylons, the fact that the Viper to your left might suddenly take a shot at you, not completely unheard of.
Very
Yes.
true.
Yeah, and in the beginning, anyway, we will, in the starter set, we will have a series of scenarios which are very closely inspired by the TV series. So you will have several different gaming situations that are based essentially on the season one of the series, but over time we want to expand, essentially follow up all the storyline of the series. Of course, for playability purposes, we made this scenario so that they scale up, so you can play a version of the original battle with just a couple of Vipers, a couple of Raiders, but of course you could play it much larger
With
if
a
you got
huge
enough
battle scale,
people
yeah.
and enough ships. The other key elements of the game. Let's look a little bit through the mechanics. I think maybe worthwhile mentioning a
Absolutely.
couple of them. So essentially when you play, you have two devices which are key to your control. One is the control panel, and the control panel is set up so that you can make the main decision about the speed of your ship with this track, the rotation of your ship with this dial here. You keep track of the momentum of the ship, of the kinetic energy of the ship with this slider here, and you keep track of the altitude changes through the slider here. So here you can plan either to go up, to go down, to rotate,
So
set
you're
the different
playing
ships.
in 3 dimensions then,
You can
essentially.
play in 3 dimensions if you want, yes. At the basic level, you just play like if it
2D,
was a
yeah.
flat 2D, but you can play in 3 dimensions. And in fact, the three-dimensional gaming is also supported. As I said, we wanted to do complex things in a simple way. So, for example, here's the combat ruler that you normally use. You see there are ranges on the combat ruler: short range, medium range, long range, with different modifiers to combat.
Right.
Then if you play in 3 dimensions, when you shoot at a ship which is one level higher than you get the other side of the ruler, which tells you which are the ranges when you shoot at a ship which is one level higher or one level lower than you. So you not had the ache in calculating distances. You just flip the ruler and calculate what the range is. And it's actually, say, people who knows a little bit of math can actually try to guess the formula
Do
to
a
which
little
we
bit
use
of
it to build
geometry.
the ruler in this way. The speed that you set on your control panel determines, together with the maneuver card that you have chosen, which kind of maneuver the kind of maneuver you're doing. So, for example, you see
Okay.
this maneuver card has 4 different arrows, for slow speed, medium speed, high speed, and even as a backward maneuver arrow. Starships in space can actually are not forced to only to move forward like airplanes do, but they can actually use their engines to move backward. So this is possible with certain maneuver cars. You will have the possibility of doing overboosts. So essentially, it's a combination of two cars. Of course, this will get your momentum to be very high. So you will need to be careful to setting the maximum speed for your ship, because otherwise, in the next turn, you are limited to the new maneuver that you can do. You can just brake in space.
Gotcha.
And this is also taken into account because once every time that you use a maneuver like this, you will keep track of the momentum of the ship on this slider here. So, for example, if you move with these two cars, you see there are little numbers close to the arrows. They say what is the kinetic energy of that arrow. We just sum them up together, keep track of them on the slider, and you know that next turn you can have a variation of this ship of this value, which is equal to the acceleration value of your ship. So each ship card will show the key features, which are the attack. So how good is the ship to when attacking? Essentially, it's the two hit number that you have to roll on two dice to hit your opponent. Structure is how strong the ship is, how much damage it can hold before being destroyed. And acceleration, which is the amount of variation that you can have from one turn to another. So you are limited in the choice of your next maneuver by the acceleration value of the ship. So it's what I'm explaining here is already the advanced level of the game. So it's still, even when it's you're playing with the complete rules, still it's not a complex one.
But I could see what you're saying, though, when you mentioned earlier that this is a more realistic take on the space fighting games, where you're taking into account your momentum, kinetic energy, acceleration, three-dimensional height in space. So that's really cool that it can get that strategic in terms of how you play the game.
Yes, definitely. Yes, that was one of our goals. Still, when you play at the basic level, is very accessible. Is very easy to play. Combat is differently from Wings of Glory, Sails of Glory, which was completely diceless. Here we will use a little bit of dice because there were certain kind of combat modifiers that we wanted to introduce to make the game a little more strategic. So that was not so simple to do with other systems. So we will use a dice-driven combat resolution together with damage token in the style of what we have in Wings of Glory and Sails of Glory. So when you hit your opponent, you will draw damage tokens. Damage tokens will keep damage secret, so you don't really know exactly how much damage you inflict to the opponent's ship, but also allow you to handle as special things like, say, critical hits. So some tokens will tell you to draw another token, so you sum up the values together. Special damage, so like a pilot is damaged, or the ship is damaged, or the engines are damaged, so you will have different kind of special damages with effects on your ship, and this is all handled by the draw of the damage tokens.
Very cool. So what would you say your favorite aspect of this game is? I know that this got a lot of meat to it, that there's a lot of different things you can do, but what's one thing that really sticks out to you that makes the game really jump off the table?
Well, if you're a miniature guy, you're going to love the miniatures. These are, as someone who's been excited about the BSG property since the original series, I'm old enough to say I watched it when it aired for the first time. And can actually still remember that. So the miniatures are great. I think the second piece that I look at is Roberto's holding in his hand the control panel. It allows you to do so much so simply. It really makes the turns fly. You don't have to spend a lot of time thinking, what did I do and how did this work? You're simply choosing a card, setting your control panel, and you're playing. So
or even jotting it down with
Right.
pencil and paper.
All you have to do is know what you want to do, and so your turn is really focused on what do I want to do, not how do I want to do it. The game takes care of that for you, and it really works well.
Fantastic. So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today regarding this Battlestar Galactica game before we say goodbye to you?
Okay, first thing, the game will be playable in this prototype form. I must mention that what we have seen here is essentially final in terms of its presentation, so the ships here will look the same, but it's still partly prototype material. So for example, the control panel here is a 3D printed prototype,
right.
so if you see some a little bit of a level
lines
of
that you
roughness,
have there, yeah.
that won't be in the final product. So with this prototype that we've seen here, it will be possible to play all through the 4 days of Gen Con at our booth 335.
Very
So
cool.
everybody who wants to know more and learn more about the game is welcome to come and visit us. Everybody who's not at Gen Con should look for the game in stores before the end of the year. Our goal is to be out around the end of November, early December. We should be in stores all over the world and in the US, of course.
Very good. And so I know that you said that the starter pack's going to be 2 of each of the 2 ships that we showed off today.
Yes.
So is there a price point associated with that?
Yes,
or?
it should be $50. It's
Okay.
not been officially sent out to retailers, but that should be the final price point. And the 4 ships one will be the Apollo's Viper, so there will be an Apollo pilot card to go together with the ship. Pilot cards are another feature of the game which we didn't show here, but are also used. Pilots will have their own talents, their own flows, and they will be used to modify the way a ship behaves in combat. And in the starter set, we will have Apollo featured and his Viper, another second Viper, and 2 Silent Riders. So that's will be all the components that you need to play with them, of course.
And then the individual ships will come out in individual ship packs for folks like Starbuck and some of the
Yes, we will have Boomer's Raptor. We will have a Scar as a Scar's Silent Rider, the one we see here, the Scar. So we will we will have when we have the Viper Mark 7 again. We will have Apollo's Viper Mark 7 and Starbuck. So we will have both, say, generic ships with can be associated to various pilots, and we will have specific ships associated to the stars of the series.
Very good. And so where can our viewers go to get more information about when this game is launching and maybe some more of when it's coming out?
There is our Facebook page, both for Battlestar Galactica and RS Games activity in general, and of course the website rsgames.eu.
Sounds good. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me
Thank you.
today. I appreciate you taking the time to show off the game. And thank all of you for watching at home. Stay tuned for more coverage all week long here at Gen Con 2018. Signing off for now, I'm Matt. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.